Welcome back, guys. So in this chapter we will start with Java polymorphism. Okay, so how Java polymorphism works and what are the ways we can achieve the polymorphism in Java. So basically there are two ways we can achieve the Java polymorphism. The one is by method overloading and one is by method overriding. Okay, so here first we will talk about method overloading. Actually the first one. So if you look at here, the method overloading is the feature that allow a class to have more than one method having the same name. So you can create more than one method with the same name if their argument list are different. Very important point here. If their argument list are different, it is similar to constructor overloading, which we have seen that in previous example, that allows a class to have more than one constructor having different argument list. So the method overloading basically it will help you to overload your method based on the argument. So if you look at here the example method overloading 1, here you have a method called display method, right, which is a static one. Okay, private is the access, void is the return type, and it takes one argument of type integer and it will just print the data. So I'm not doing anything here. Then you have a display method which will take two arguments. So if you look at here, the name is also same, the return type is also same, access is also same, and it is also a static one, right? So how do you call this method? This method will get called based on the argument. So when you call display 1, this will get executed. When you call display 1 comma 4, your second display will get executed. So what happens on the runtime? Your compiler will look for the method which has two arguments. If you are calling the method with the two argument, it will look for the same method with two argument and it will call. If you are calling with one argument, it will look for the method with one argument and it will call. So that actually that is called method overloading. And why this is important, why this is required? So sometimes what happens is let's say uh, you have add method, assume that add method, and you have a requirement where you need to add two numbers and you have a requirement to add three numbers, right? So you cannot go and write add you cannot write method name as add two numbers, add three numbers. It will not look good, right? Because let's say I'm calling your method from the outside the class, I'm calling your method from the other class. For me it is not convenient. I have to remember, if you'll just give me one method and if I'll supply two argument, it will work for that. It will supply three, it will work for that. Easy for me, right? As a caller it is easy for me. So that's where the method overloading will help you, right? Like it will help you to call your method based on the argument even though you have a multiple methods with the same name, right? So how this can be achieved? This can be achieved by changing the data of the parameters. Okay, you cannot keep the same data. So let's say you have a display method, so you can keep you can create two method with one argument called display. One you are calling with integer, one you are calling with a string. So this will also help you to overload by just changing the argument. So one display you can just, let's say I'm calling the display method, when I'll supply integer, still the display method will work, and the other persons when he will call the display method by supplying the string, still the display will work. Let me show you with the example. Let me show you with the clip so that it is clear for you. Look at here, the first example as I was mentioning it, display and display 1 2, this will get called. Okay, look at the second example, display with integer, display with a string, and this will work fine. So let's say create some other class A and create one more class B. Okay, there is two class A and B. So B has a main method, main control space bar. Okay, A also has a main method. Okay, cool. So now in override 2, I will go to the A class and I will call dot display, sorry, overloading to, okay, so I did one mistake. I made this as a private, so I'll make this as a public, because if I have a method is equal to private, I cannot call from the outside. So I will go yeah, dot display. So let's say I will call this with the string, right? So like assume that these are the callers, they are calling your method. So for these guys, they don't have to bother like whether they have to call display integer or display string. They are calling just display method, and based on the argument your data will get executed. This guy will execute integer one, and the second one will execute the string one, right? Internally it will decide like which one should get executed. That is the benefit of method overloading, right? Now look at the actually third example, which is actually very important here. Usually when we write a program, sometimes we need to format the number. Okay, we need to format the number and we need to convert into a particular format. Like no matter what input is coming, output should be same. So that's where it will overloading will help you. You have a method, right? So guys, if you want to use from the outside the class, please make this all private as a public. Okay, so here it will take the integer value, it will format to the string. Again it will take the double value, it will format to a string. Again it will take the string value and it will format to the, it will actually format to the string, right? So how this formatting happens? If you look at the first one, string dot format percentage d and then value, okay, which means here is percentage d. So the percentage d is used for the integer, whereas the second one is used for the floating point, and the third one is also used for the floating point, right? So this is like 3 decimal points, this is 2 decimal points. Let me show you in the Eclipse. See, you have percent. So first let me run that. This is the output, right? So the for the first formatting, when you have created the object and when you will call format number 500, when you write percentage d, so percentage d means whatever value is coming, right, it will get formatted to the string. Okay, now when you have a double and when you are formatting to a string, and when you say percentage dot 3f, which means you want only 3 decimal point, that's what I was saying that. And when you have percentage 2f, so if you look at here, the input was 89.9934, but it became 89.993 because you have restricted by writing 0.3f. Again 0.2f, this was 550 guys. So this was 550, this guy was 550, but still we formatted to percentage 2 of f, and whatever data, the string data went here, we have typecast to the double. So to convert a string data to the double, you can just write double dot parse double. Double is the class. We will see in the wrapper classes, but here try to understand. Double is the class. Double has a method called parse double, and when you supply the value, it will change the data to the double. But you are saying that format to percentage dot 2f. So this will give you percentage 2 decimal point 550.00, because here there was no decimal point. Okay, so that's how method overloading will help you to format different kind of data by just calling the format number, right? Here caller will not be aware like whether he has to supply integer, double or a string. You supply whatever you want to do, I will convert into the string and I will accept only the data which I want. So here when I see when I say string dot format, here you supply, let's say after decimal point you supply 10 a digit, but I will consider only 3. Here if you supply 10 digit, I'll consider only 2. So that's how method overloading will help you to ease your job, to ease your task, and it is easy for caller also. Like they can call the same method by supplying the different argument. Okay, so that's what I have mentioned here. Percentage D decimal integer, percentage F decimal floating point. Okay, here like percentage D is decimal, and then we have a decimal integer and decimal floating points. Like when do we use percentage D? When you have a decimal integer, and when you use percentage F, when you have a floating point. That's what I have mentioned here. Now important points. Two and more methods can have same name inside the same class if they accept different argument. This feature is known as method overloading. Okay, try to remember. Method overloading is achieved by either changing the number of argument or by changing the data type of an argument. So there are two ways you can achieve overloading. Either you change the argument. In one method you keep with the two argument, in the second same method you keep with the three argument, still overloading is possible. Or you keep two method with one argument, but your argument type should be different. That's how you can achieve. Why method overloading important? Suppose you have a perform additions of given number, right? But there can be any number of argument, let's say either two or three arguments for simplicity. In order to accomplish the task, you can create two method, sum one number int comma int or sum two number. So generally what you will do, general practice, you will create two method, right? Sum one, sum two, right? For 2 and 3 parameter respectively. However, others programmer as well as you in future may get confused as the behavior of both the method is same, but they differs by name. Both are doing the same task, it is adding the number, but the name is different, so you will get confused when you have to call from the different class. So the better way is overload the method, and this will help you to increase the readability of the program. Your program will be more readable. Okay, that's what industry look for. When you write the code should be generic, it should be more readable. That's what you're a good developer, otherwise they will not consider you as a good developer. Why method overloading is not possible? By changing the return type of method. These questions you might be wondering, like why only when you change the argument, when you change the type of the argument it is possible, but when you change the return type it is not possible. Okay, look at here, same argument, two argument, int a int b, return type integer, return type double. Why this is not possible? This method overloading is not possible because compiler will get confused. Compiler will not look for the return type, it will look for the number of argument to the method or the type of argument to the method. When you are calling that, let's say Java allowed you, okay? Java allowed you, you are calling this. When you are calling this add method, you will call 4 5, again second add also 4 5. Then how compiler will decide which method need to be invoked, right? That is the reason by changing the return type method overloading is not possible. Ambiguity, you will get a compile time error itself. Okay, compile time error is already defined, so you will get like this, right? Can we overload main method? Very interesting questions. Can we overload main method? Yes, we can. We can overload, right? You can have any number of main method in the class by method overloading, but JVM calls main method which receives a string array as an argument only. See here, this is the important point, and this even I was asked when I was giving one of the interview, like can you overload main method? I said yes, we can. But what happens is when you overload main method, you can write n number of main overloading method, does not matter. Your JVM will understand the main method only which if the main has argument of a string array. So you look at here, I have main method here, right? First main method, a string argument, second main method only a string, third is only main. See, this is not overloaded, right? But which one is actual main, which JVM will understand? The first one, this guy JVM will understand. The second, third will be considered as the normal method. It will not be the main method. It will be considered as the normal method, though it has a public static void, public static void, public static void, public static void, but argument should be a string of array, then only JVM will consider as a main method. But yes, you can overload, right? It will be treated as the normal main method. You can create the, you can call by the class reference, you can call overloading 5 dot main, and you can call overloading 5 dot main underscore test, you can call that, right? Now look at this example. See, again, this is a simple example where you are just overloading it. You have a sum method, 2 arguments, sum 3 arguments. This is straightforward, right? Method overloading with type promotion in case of ambiguity. This is very important. So, I mean, this is again, somebody can say that, like in this two sum method, look at this interesting questions. You have a sum, you have a sum. Now you will say that, boss, my sequence of argument is not same, so compiler should allow me to actually overload this. Yes, you can overload that. You can write int a long b or long a int b, but problem here, what will happen, right? Compiler will get confused here, guys. See, though you are allowed to do so, but why there will be ambiguity? The reason is, the problem here, when you say integer and long b, and when you say long a integer b, the problem is long can take integer, integer can take long data. If, let's say, if range is very small, does not matter whether it is a long or integer, both can accept each other data. That's where compiler will get confused. You look at the example number 7, we'll see in the eclipse. See here, now the problem is, I am saying that 2020. So the problem what will happen is, though this method is overloaded, but this is the ambiguity case where this 20 can be accepted by long, 20 can be accepted by integer. Okay, so now it's tough for the compiler to decide which sum method should get called. So whenever you are writing that this kind of method overloading, please avoid it. Okay, when this is good, when you have a float, then there will not be any issue at all. Then actually okay, but again here the problem is, float also there will be an issue. The issue is, integer data will be accepted by the float, right? Integer data will be accepted by the float. So what you can do, that is, you can write boolean. This is perfectly fine, because here it will not contradict each other. See, the problem what happens is, when you write float, double, integer, long, each can accept the other data type. That is the problem, right? Or if you'll go more the range of integer, or you write like this, then there is no problem, right? Because you are forcefully saying that, boss, call the method which is of type, first type is the long. So this you can achieve here also. Okay, you can write 20l. So when I say 20l, which means you call the method, you call this method which has the first type as in long. Similarly, here ambiguity will come, right, like this, no error. But the problem here is, again, this is not good for caller. If someone is calling your method, he has to remember like which one should be long, which one should be short, or which one should be integer, right? You can see that, right? I can remove the compile time, but the problem is, caller has to know like which argument he has to supply long. And my in my opinion, when you are writing a code, caller should not know, because method is overloaded. He should just call your method, right? So you try to avoid this kind of overloading. Okay, don't do that, because this will be ambiguity. Compiler will get confused. So do not do that, this kind of overload. Though it will work, I mean, you can just uh, suffix with the l and it will work, right? But you should not do that. Now, when parent class has one parameterized constructor, then child class has to explicitly call the parent class parameterized constructor, right? So okay, I think this is the example of method overloading. Okay, cool. Anyways, we know the inheritance now, so we can handle this. So let's say when parent class has only parameterized constructor, then child class has to explicitly call the parent class parameterized constructor. I think this we have seen that when I was talking about if you try to remember the super calling statement, when you try to remember, I have explained this. So whenever you have a parent class and parent class has only parameterized constructor, okay, then child class has to explicitly call that. Here you have overloading example 8 and it has only parameterized constructor, and as you know that when parent class has only parameterized constructor and if there is no default constructor, then in that case compiler will not keep default constructor on behalf of you, okay. And when you have a child class, this guy extends parent class, so this guy explicitly has to call the parent class constructor. This guy explicitly has to call parent class, overriding a 9 int super I. This guy has to hash. If you will not do that, you will get a compile time error. Let me show you. Look at this. So you have class has only one constructor. Now overloading 9, it has one more constructor. Now let's comment that. This I have already covered, but let's again go through it. So see here you are getting the compile time error. Why you are getting the compile time error? Whenever your parent class has only parameterized constructor, you have to call explicitly. Let's say this guy has default also, then you don't need to, okay. Then see error has gone. Why error has gone? Because compiler will always keep the constructor first argument as a super calling statement with no argument. So when you don't write this, compiler what it will do, it will do like this, it will do like this. So what this guy will do, this guy will go to the parent class, it will look for the default constructor. That's what compiler will do. But when you don't write, you'll get a compile time error, right? Because when your parent class has the parameterized constructor, it need to be called. So you have to call your parent class constructor with the same argument, okay. Similarly, there is another example. When parent class has parameterized and default both, here look at this parameterized and default, then child class has not explicitly called the parent class constructor. Since Java compiler will keep super with default as a first line of the constructor, which I told already. So here what will happen is, here you have parameterized, you have a default, and then you have one default. So here the first line of this constructor is going to be super with no argument. So which one this guy will call? This constructor, right? And you will not get any problem. Now in my next topic I will start with method overriding in the Java. Thank you guys, thank you for watching this.